is 7 p.m. I hereby open this meeting of the Londonderry Heritage District Commission, this 22nd day of August 2024. This is a special meeting to continue design review applications from our July meeting. We have two items on the agenda for today for review. However, we will only be reviewing one of them. First order of business is to approve the minutes from our prior meeting. Mr. Secretary, I believe you have some notes.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have 4 changes to the minutes that have come from commissioners. I'd propose to read those, and then most of them are technical, and then just make a motion to approve them all. First one is Mr. Rugg pointed out that I had the Ted Combs title incorrect. He is an ex officio to this committee since he's a voter and not just the town council liaison. So I've changed that in the minutes to ex officio. Next, David Koglazers suggested that we add a note that said the May meeting was canceled due to a lack of business before the commission. Okay. And unless there's objection, I'll include that. There was a typo that my editor, Mr. Rugg, caught where I put the word nest in instead of next. And finally, adjournment last week, for this meeting, I had a 6-0 count when there were only 5 of us voting there, so I proposed to change that to 5-0. And unless there's further amendments, I would make a motion to accept the amended draft minutes.
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. Minutes are approved. Okay, moving on to our review applications. We will be skipping item A on the agenda today and only reviewing the site plan for a 15,200 square foot retail building and 9,400 square foot childcare building and associated site improvements. Village on Technology Hill PUD, Londonderry Holdings LLC, owner and applicant.
All right, good evening, folks. First of all, thank you for holding your meeting this evening so that we can move forward with this all-important next phase of our project. My name is Nick Golan. I'm a licensed engineer and principal with TF Moran. I'm joined this evening by Mr. Tony Nozaka, project architect with Stone River Architects. So Tony will be really our key point speaker for the evening, but at our last meeting with you folks, there was a few takeaways as far as things you would like us to further evaluate. I'm going to give a little summary of those, and then we're going to give Tony the opportunity to give you the proof in the pudding as far as those items that you were looking for to be revised. Relative to the comments that we had received, shingle roofs rather than standing seam metal where feasible. To please submit material and color samples. Softer earth tone palette for residential buildings is recommended, noting that we are just looking at retail and childcare this evening. Details for windows and window treatments. A signage plan and an enclosed school bus stop is recommended. Relative to the signage plan, and we should have brought it up at the last meeting, that will be done by a turnkey vendor. So that is a full package that you guys will receive at a later date, but it's probably sometime off. Regarding the enclosed school bus stop, if we want to flip to our site plans, and these are literally hot off the presses, these were printed today so that we could meet the deadline for formal review. We have incorporated a bus stop at the main entrance of the facility. Here we are. This is site prep. We'll go one more. Sorry, hopefully I'm not making anybody dizzy. All right, there we go. So this is the primary entrance here off of Akira Way. This is that retail area here. This is our childcare. We have a bus enclosure that currently measures 10 by 5 and a rebuilt sidewalk in this location. We're talking a little bit about it before the meeting. One of the things that this bus stop did is also better facilitated pedestrian movements really throughout the facility. We previously had a sidewalk on the opposite side, which was creating the need to cross over that central lane and to do so at the primary entrance, which wasn't necessarily desirable. What we've been able to do is rebuild that sidewalk all along the retail side and provide a crossing further interior to the property such that we no longer have to cross one or two driveways at what otherwise would be inopportune locations. Again, I'd voice the fact that it's a 15-mile-per-hour zone within the village on Technology Hill, so we should all be moving at slow speeds. But anytime we can give drivers and pedestrians a little bit more reaction time, all the better. I believe there is a graphic. Tony, can you?
Should be open actually on the bottom.
Oh, even better.
I think they're both open.
There we go. So it looks like we got two options here. And I'm jumping ahead a little bit here, but you know, why not? This is one such design that could be incorporated. It's an attractive image. I think this would work nicely. And it appears we also have an alternate that versus the translucent, perhaps a little bit of different materials. So just the overall look and feel, though, is consistent with what I think the expectations are for the village on Technology Hill. Ultimately, this will go before the planning board so that they have the opportunity to review it, but we'd be certainly interested in your thoughts if there was a preference between the two as Tony works to really resolve this overall layout element.
And just to piggyback on these images, you know, we're deciding between an out-of-the-box kind of bus stop, if it's something a little more custom, if you will, that obviously there's expense to that. And also we'd be willing to, I don't know if there's a Londonderry standard for bus stops or if there's anything that we could willingly work with the town on that, coming up with that aesthetic.
Hey, Jim.
So we thought this would be a nice element, and again, it's really cleaned up our pedestrian movements within the site. So it was a great suggestion. I'm glad we've been able to incorporate it. What I'll do now is really flip it back to Tony at this point to talk a little bit about our buildings. We've got our retail, we've got our childcare. I'll let you go ahead and drive, sir. Sure. Acknowledging that there were really 3 additional comments that we need to make sure we address. Tony will address those first, and if there's other items that we really want to talk about, the floor will be yours to ask, and we'll make sure we answer.
Mr. Chair, question. Are we going to ask questions as we go along, or are we going to see our
Please
presentation?
feel free. If you have a burning question that you would like to ask as they speak, please bring it up.
I may
Otherwise-
get burned, but
We'll keep good eye contact so we know when to stop.
the bus stop, was that enclosed on the sides, or were those open on all the sides?
One was enclosed, one was open, but can easily be modified.
Okay, and when we said open, like open in front and closed on 3 sides, is that what, I couldn't tell
Yep.
from the picture?
I can go back to it. This one on the right was kind of open all around. This one on the left was glass enclosures all around.
Okay, all right, great.
Yeah, we don't have any standards for bus stops.
We
and bus
we looked
enclosures or
long and hard, and I could not find anything,
Yeah.
so that's reassuring to hear.
I will say, since we happen to be stalled on this subject at the very moment, the second one, in my opinion, is a little nicer. The earth tone thing kind of comes into play, and I think it plays well off of the stone that you're also planning to put on the retail building. Helps kind of tie everything together. The only thing I'm curious about is it looks like there's slats in the roof.
It's a different way it's built. So for example, the one on the left, they're sort of cantilevered metal posts. I mean, it's a little bit in the nitty gritty, but there's a company that does prefab canopies like this called InnoFab. We work with a ton. That's sort of how they would cantilever that with 2 main beams on the left and right there. And then there's aluminum slats that kind of carry the
But they
canopy.
will carry the water
Correct.
off. It won't actually
Yep.
come through. Okay.
Won't be a rainstorm.
Yeah, I was just.
Yeah, otherwise, it kind of defeats the purpose.
Looks more like a pergola, right?
Yeah, so the canopy of that would be like a translucent-ish material to allow light in. You're not cavernous.
So the one on the right, could that have sides also?
Yes, yeah, of course. The one on the right's a little just more custom. The one on the left's a little more of an out-of-the-box image that we had found.
The one on the left
Yes.
is the stuff you see in Boston.
Yep.
The one on the right, if they put sides in, I think that would be
The one on the
a
right's
game
got-
changer,
I think as Chris said, more character to it.
100%.
All right, so we'll make sure we take that as a takeaway this evening, that the one that had a little bit more character is the more desirable of the two.
With sides,
I'm sorry?
with sides.
With sides, with character and sides.
And sides.
You are correct,
I
sir.
think that's a
That-
win-win
that's
for
an
everybody.
Well, especially on the days that it's 0 degrees with 20-degree windshield.
Right, and you got a bunch of kids waiting there for their school bus,
All
right?
All right, off to the buildings. Tony?
Yeah, I think it's important to have the shields on the sides, so it's not open so much,
Right.
for the sake of small urchins waiting.
All right. And as Tony starts, one thing I just want to note, images can always be tough because depending on what your screen settings are and color settings on the TVs, things can sometimes look a little different. So Tony's going to kind of proof our way through that as far as discussion. And I think he's got some samples here today as well. So
Yep.
I just want to make sure we started with that.
Sure.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we'll start off with the retail building. Just a real quick synopsis about these two buildings. Being the entry to Technology Hill, we wanted to make it as such as you're entering it. Keep that traditional New England feel that Londonderry likes to see, traditional colors. And since these are a little smaller buildings than what is sort of the context of this sort of industrial area, we feel it kind of keeping the traditional New England feel kind of softens the whole area. The retail building here, it's your standard box building with gable ends for entries. It is a flexible building as a flex space. We don't know who the tenants are at the moment, so we didn't want one main gable entry, two calls out multiple entries. That is what we're showing here. So in a situation like this, we have 3 tenants, 3 signage boards. We can get up to 6 in this building tenants. Obviously, they'd be smaller, but we'll let the market sort of dictate that. The biggest thing I think we wanted to touch on was color and material. That was a big thing from last time. As I'm just gonna reiterate what Nick said, is that when you see on the screen and how we render things, it's much different than what can be real. So
See the real stuff.
show you the real stuff. The stone base, this is typical in each and typical, honestly, throughout the village. This is as real looking stone as you can get these days, and as durable as real looking stone you can get these days without having to have the install cost of real stone. It looks very nice and low maintenance.
Who makes that?
Certainty?
So is that ceramic or is
It's concrete. So
Oh,
you can gouge it, you
so
can.
it's just,
Yeah. Do you want me to?
Pass
I
it
can-
around.
Every time I pull one of these, I can bring it up.
Jim's the expert with this stuff, so.
All right.
So that's typical, about 2.5 feet around the 3 sides of this building, and around the back side of the building, it's not as visual as seen from the entire village, so a little cost savings. You'll see on this rear elevation, we don't have that stone base.
That's some weight to it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
We'll pull the building down, will it?
We have good structural engineers.
So I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
You guys wanted to tie in the bus stop thing there. That wall looked like they were browns. This is gray. Is this the same?
It
Help me
would,
out here.
if we were to do a stone base, it would be that same stuff.
Got it?
Yeah.
Cool.
The next layer here for this, is again is a common theme for both these buildings. They both have board and batten first base. The upper layer is clapboard siding. This is just to show you what the board and batten we're using. Obviously, the lower portion here is this blue. What's that called? Wedgwood blue. The nice thing about this board and batten is this is actually a specialty board and batten from Certainteed. It's a little thicker, it's a little chunkier. It doesn't get that waviness. It's got like a rigidity to it. And for the scale of these buildings, we just thought they were appropriate to use rather than the other vinyl I think are thinner, like 6-inch board and battens. And it's more of just a reveal. Thanks. The one thing I don't have to pass around, but I don't think it's hugely necessary, is just trim. We have a trim board that breaks up these two, and then also acts as sort of your backing for signage at your gable ends here.
That's gonna be vinyl, like AZEC type?
Yes, correct. Yep. And then for the upper portion is this clapboard. This is your standard Certainteed vinyl. This is the color of the upper portion. The nice thing about the Certainteed line as well, I think they take a lot of pride in their color selection being very muted, very New Englandy, if you will. Very classic colors. You know, that's they're mainly residential, and it's just go-to for getting a nice look in very classic colors. And then as Nick said, what I don't have, another thing I don't have that we don't really need, I feel, is the asphalt shingle roof. Before we had the standing seam metal roof, switch it to where we'll do a standard architectural, not like a jet black, but like a mixture of dark browns, grays, pretty standard stuff.
So instead of the standing seam metal roof that was previously shown, we've now shown a shingle roof, correct?
Yep.
So recommendation accepted.
So I want to ask you a question. The metal shingles,
Everyone see this?
is that, I'm just curious, because you went originally with the metal roof, I understand it.
Yeah,
Get
it's
it.
more of a
Just curious.
cost thing.
That's,
Economical.
Yeah.
okay, I got it.
And not only costing, I don't think
Yep.
they've perfected the metal shingles yet.
Okay.
Standing seam, they, been around for a long time. And then finally, while I have window samples for the child's care, this is your standard storefront that you'll see in most of your box stores around town. It'll be like a aluminum bronze, bigger glass openings for the retail, aluminum, entry doors.
Anything tinted? Just curious, that's all.
Not that we've really talked about.
Oh, okay,
So no.
no
Yeah.
problem. Yeah, got it. The only reason why I say that is the windows are representing green.
Glass is very
then again,
hard to
I know.
render. I think it's
That's
actually the
why I asked.
reflection of it's the reflection of the trees. And then finally, we kept similar of the little contemporary elements, the small shed roofs that will have probably some sort of composite wood under, there you go. So, there you go, thanks, Jane. Some sort of composite wood soffit. Again, this stuff has come a long way in looking like real wood, but it'll last forever. All these materials we've kept in mind, deferred maintenance. They don't have to get painted in 10 years. The wood's not gonna rot. It's always gonna look new.
No pest issues.
Right. So that is the.
I'm curious, on that wood, when you attach it to
Yep.
the screw,
Yep,
are there plugs?
yes,
Just curious.
yep. You don't have to.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things, like,
Just,
such a small area, might as well.
okay.
On the fenestration, you show what we have here on the screen.
I've used plenty of that composite
Um,
before, and it's usually a little more flexible.
It has some different dividers in it, so I see between the two doors, there's a panel with a person standing in front of it, and it's got white vertical and a white horizontal bar, and then there's one vertical and one horizontal dark bar. And what's that about?
Is this the image you're referring to?
Well, our images are different. The one we have here and that one are different as far as the fenestration. That one has that same place between the two doors, right there, to the left.
Here?
Keep going left.
Keep going left.
There, that one.
Yep.
And so that's like 4 wide and 3 high. And what we have in front of us is the same thing, except the dividers are different colors.
Yeah.
Is it gonna be white?
Interesting. No, it'll be like, it might be a shadow. It'll likely be either a dark aluminum or oil rub bronze, something that fits in with,
So it'll be a dark color then?
likely, yes. Yeah, like a dark bronze. Again, it might just be a rendering thing.
Good eye.
Yeah, that is a good eye.
And you have support bars for over the windows, the little shades there
Correct.
on the front, and you don't have them on the sides. What's up? Save money.
The facade is,
Okay.
Bill, is
It's meant to be decorative on the front.
decorative, and it acts as a solar shade for bigger glass. You
Yeah,
might
but
want to have a little more solar shade.
Is it functional or is it just decorative?
It's both. The
Both.
solar shade is when you do bigger expanses of glass,
Right.
to have a solar shade when you have the sun direction
I mean, the support bars, the vertical dark
Oh,
bars.
the support bars, yeah, it's,
Are they
they're-
decorative?
it's
or-
both in that case as well.
Okay.
It's a lot more expensive to cantilever canopies like that than to tie them back.
Okay.
All right, so we haven't had a chance to talk a little bit about retail.
On the back view of that,
Back view, yeah.
rear elevation,
Yes.
you're only gonna have a couple of doors back there.
Yep, so we have a couple egress doors. We have that overhead loading door. It's not really loading dock. It's for, there's a back common hallway, so for all the tenants to use, so.
Hand trucking of whatever
Exactly.
materials.
A truck comes in the back, they load with
Yeah.
a hand truck to their,
But you don't need to have any more doors back there for,
no, we do not.
What, are you gonna have like a connecting hallway along the back?
Exactly, that's
where-
exactly,
yeah.
yep.
okay. And then, are there gutters on this building? Is that
Gutters,
to the
we,
rainwater?
gutters, for the most part, I think we were treating as, the front will likely get some, stormwater management to diverted. The rear is essentially getting graded off. I'll let Nick
Yep,
hit that
and
one.
our stormwater management areas are all located pretty darn close. So we have a little runoff to catch basins that are located within the parking lot. And then within that parking lot, it then drains to a stormwater management area that's immediately to the west, which is a infiltration basin.
From the roof,
Yes, sir.
it drains into something that drains out, okay. And what are the supports, members by the doors, where it says signage, and you've got the little roof there? What is the support material there?
That'll either be, that'll
wait a
likely be
second.
clad in either a composite type of wood or like a PVC.
Pardon me, I didn't read it. It says natural wood columns and accents.
Sure.
Okay. And only one niggling detail, because I look at details. What kind of a car is that on the far right?
Which one? Which one? This one?
The gray one.
This one here?
No, keep going.
This one?
Further right.
Very generic,
That's
isn't
left.
it?
Further right.
Other right.
Oh, this guy, the one right in front?
That
I'm
one.
gonna say Ford Taurus, perhaps?
I would guess a Corolla, personally.
Oh, jeez.
One of the new Kias, maybe? I don't know.
Here's the
Possibly.
problem.
Judging by the handlebars, I'm gonna, no.
The
It's
problem.
not like we're looking at a 67 vet, if they're
It's
harder
got-
to tell.
It's got 2017 F-150 wheels,
Oh, really?
7 lug nuts.
Interesting. See, that's a detail right there.
That's okay. I was just curious.
He is,
Where
he
do you
is
get 7
detail
lug
oriented.
nuts? So the people at the tire warehouse told me there was one truck, F-150s, in 2017, they made 7 lug nuts on a wheel.
Make sure that makes it into the
This is weird.
Okay.
Remember that for trivia.
But this is better.
I
We
would like
had
you on my
another
team,
one
sir, jeez.
that came
do
in
well.
here, another applicant, and they had a little video of their, going through the village and everything. The cars were driving on the wrong side of the street. So they had
Attention to
all these little
detail.
cars going around like I was in England.
Maybe they outsourced.
It was
the
a
rest of
European version.
I was gonna say, yeah, UK.
But if there aren't other questions as to retail, do you want to go ahead and we'll go over to childcare and talk over those same elements if we could?
I think we're ready. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking to see what cars are where now.
See what kind of brand the guy's jeans are. So similarly to the childcare, again, a traditional sort of New England feel to it. Overall gable roof with one main gable entry. As far as the form goes, it's pretty simple. And then we bump up some larger glass windows for more natural light, for assuming those will be classrooms. The materials similarly will be, did those make it back first?
Right.
Okay. The board and batten, the first layer will be not that color, but this sandstone beige.
Which is that?
That is the So it'll be the board and batten.
Yeah, okay.
First
Cool.
layer, just that color. We have a similar trim band, just not as robust as the retail building. And then the upper layer is the same clapboard siding, just in this color, Oxford blue, which is a little grayish. But again, it's a nice contrast to the two tones. Again, very traditional New England colors.
Yep.
The roof, again, is shingle. This was shingle before. And this one, since we don't really have any, the contemporary flair, if you will, for the retail building with some of those sunshades that were kind of tied back, the front gable is anticipated to be sort of a metal panel that ties the contemporary into the traditional, and that here's a sample of this metal panel. This is really just to show you the reveals, and I think when we combine this with sort of the traditional siding, line up the reveals in a sort of harmonious way, it makes for a rich looking building, and then that would be in this.
No, go ahead, you can, yeah,
I'm sorry, where's the metal panels located?
It's the main gable of the.
signage, where the signage is.
Okay,
We're actually right where the mouse is.
gotcha. But it's gonna be the same blue color?
It'll be this blue, which is sort of just an off tone of that blue. And then similarly, just like we do in the retail, there's a entry canopy. There's that will be this same composite wood, and then we have a drop-off area that will be similar to, that has a similar aesthetic as the bus stop, and it ties everything together.
All right, so just taking a look at our to-do list, we wanted to make sure we spoke to the roof. Want to make sure that we spoke to the materials and the colors, making sure that this was a softer earth tone palette. And then discussion of the windows and windows treatments.
Read my mind there, Nick.
Well, that's the last, there we are.
The childcare will have a more traditional window look to it. Felt it appropriate for the retail to have storefront, if there's a restaurant, something there you see in, storefront's a little more appropriate. We felt was more appropriate for this, and this is actually the same window we're using for the residential buildings. This isn't I don't think this is the exact color. But the only thing about the rendering is, since these will be operable, we still need to sort of do the configuration of
Yep.
these windows to know what's what. But it's a nice product. We have, that might not be the exact window. We have 3 types that are being bid that are all very similar. That one in particular is a vinyl clad wood. So you get good thermal properties, and you get a good what's what I'm looking for? The outside's vinyl, and
Got it.
it's gonna last. But you get the thermal properties of wood, and then the inside look of wood.
Best of both worlds.
That's right.
What's the R value for that?
Great question. The
Does it say on there? Good.
windows actually typically do U values, which I don't know why people just don't get on the same page. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Certainly looks at probably the Arctic.
Yeah, we typically do double pane, low E glass. That's standard for energy code. You can always go higher.
The triple pane.
Triple pane, I think some states are, I think Massachusetts might have to do triple pane now, which is wild, but.
Pretty good, almost as good as when Joe DeCarolis brought in a whole window.
We had a whole window, unfortunately, the
If you lifted
representative
it.
needed it back, so.
Yeah, he left it in his pickup truck, so he couldn't haul it in. You're welcome.
Thanks.
Is are the representations on the rendering pretty close to what you think as far as light design in the windows? The grids?
Not quite. We haven't really, it's, for more traditional windows, you're a little more limited. the vertical and horizontal molds there. Those will be like mold together units, basically. And structure comes into play, different things. So we're gonna get as close to that as we can.
So yes.
Okay.
Sounds like it's as close to the
As
mark
close-
as,
as close as we can
what
be.
we've got right now.
And as far as the color of the grids, you said the color on that window isn't quite the one you think, but it's gonna be closer to this, like a pewter, dark pewter kind of color?
This will be more of a gray, actually, to match the bluish gray scheme.
Okay.
So that is the formal portion of tonight's presentation. I think we've hit on all the marks that were requested, but if there was anything we were deficient on, or if there's just other questions, vehicle ones as well, if we see spot anything good in the foreground or near ground here. But I'm really impressed with what Stone River's been able to put together. We hope it's in keeping with your expectations.
On your drop-off overhang says by others. Why doesn't it extend further to the left in the front elevation? If it's supposed to be protective,
It's another grade
you have
I.
to come out the door, and then you have to go under it, as opposed you come out the door and you are under it.
It's another grade I that you and the owner on the exact same page, because we had that comment today, actually. We are likely going to extend that either closer or do a similar drop-off area actually in the front to ensure that the kids getting dropped off stay out of the elements.
And dry.
Yeah, that was, I mean, it was sort of a placeholder. We're not sure how many cars
Okay.
we want to like queue up as well. If it's one car, if it's three, so as we design that, as we finalize that design.
And it'll be high enough for clearance of a small school bus?
Yes, so it only extends a few feet over the curb and was like 10 or 12 feet high.
Okay. We don't think there's gonna be any school buses getting in there, but you never know when somebody may have.
Sure.
But even our
Oh,
fire
a van or
even
something.
our fire trucks,
Right,
we
fire
still have to
trucks.
we still want to accommodate for emergency
Garbage
vehicles.
trucks,
So
yes.
it's a good point nonetheless.
Yep.
One of the things, if you guys remember on the Derry Medical Building, their cantilever, I remember being there a day and people would pull up and there was no overhang. So an elderly lady trying to get out of the car, by the time she got out, it was pouring rain out. By the time she got out of the car, she was soaked, just soaked.
A lot of money to be spent.
Let's keep people dry.
Well, I mean, it's just,
Right.
it was
You
bad.
know, that is something we can make sure is addressed as well.
Are you planning at some point in the future for solar cells on this roof of these two buildings, or that's not in the immediate
The
plans?
retail does, because it's set up perfectly. We note them on this rear elevation. That's almost directly south facing. The childcare doesn't have the best,
It's not
Right.
oriented-
Orientation.
It doesn't have the orientation that
Right.
would really be appropriate for it.
yeah. And it's choppy in the front. It would, if we were to do them here, they'd have to be on this front facade, and not sure that's,
We don't enough.
Question?
I mean, there's a good expanse on
yeah.
the other building.
And for the amount we have in the rest of the village, probably not even worth it trying to get it on the childcare.
Question.
Mr. Butler?
Out of curiosity, is there an enclosed yard for these,
Yes.
for the kids?
Yes.
So there is, I just didn't see it, I was just
Yep.
curious. That's all.
You can kind of just see a hint of it back here. I think, I just cut it off.
And the
But
reality is
there's-
there'll be a playground in the back. We've allocated
Enclosed, all that,
very nice large area. But
Nice.
the reality is whenever we have playgrounds, it's a turnkey vendor.
yes.
So very similar to like when we deal with our signage, whoever designs that playground equipment. And I would assume in part, whoever that end user is, who's going to want to have some input on how that playground's laid
Understood.
out. But we've given them a nice, good open berth there
Good.
for that need.
Awesome.
Don't have any other questions? Any other commissioners, comments, questions?
I think it looks good. We can
Make a,
send our
Motion?
recommendation to the planning board.
to make a recommendation of approval
Mm-hmm.
to the planning board?
Okay.
Vote on that?
we will recommend approval with a couple of exceptions. I did note on our comment sheet that signage will be approved at a later date. And that the bus stop with the stone base is preferred design, but must have side enclosures. Okay.
Mr. Chair, just to make everything legitimate, you need to appoint Jim.
Oh, that's
Ah.
right. Am I an alternate?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Jim's an alternate.
You're gonna appoint me?
We will appoint Jim as,
Thank you very much.
as a voting member for tonight.
The other buildings. and the
Got
other-
it.
Okay.
I want to thank you, gentlemen, for bringing in all the samples.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
did do
Yes.
it.
Absolutely.
It's-
I'll
it's
take all
always-
the adulations I can. Tony carried everything, but I'll be happy
Tony,
to.
good job. Tony, good job.
It's always best to have it
Yeah.
right in
it's
front
The
of
just-
you.
physical
some
samples
people
are
just-
Yeah.
a huge help.
I'll help you carry.
Just be able to touch and see it and everything,
Exactly.
then you know.
Exactly.
But,
Oh,
Oh, come
We're
on,
only-
no, we're not.
We're only so good at rendering stuff. And
and if I'm out of bounds, cut me off. But we
Well, it's been
had,
great seeing you. I think I heard a recommendation.
yeah. It's no good. I'm an alternate.
we had,
We can redo it.
I think we had much more dramatic suggestions on the residential buildings. And I know they're not on tonight's agenda. Is there an issue? Is there anything in particular that we weren't able to get them here tonight?
This is more of just a sequencing of the project. So we've submitted for final approval, so a final approval versus a design review for the retail and childcare. And in part, that's based off the fact that the retail building will serve as really our contractor's way station as they're building the project. So this was our next immediate need, whereas we have a considerable amount of earthwork to accomplish as part of the infrastructure phase before we have the opportunity to move forward with the residential portion. So it's a little bit of how many hours there are in the day and where do we best focus our efforts to make sure that we achieve the overall project schedule that's needed.
Do
So-
you,
I'm sorry. So we'll anticipate seeing your shining visage a lot more.
that was
Yes.
yeah.
So we have the residential package that'll be coming forth. We have numerous manufacturing buildings with On Point, with Envision, the foundation building.
Yep.
So all these,
It is a
you don't get to get rid of us just yet. So you'll have plenty more bites at the apple for those buildings.
Did we have any comments on that? I know that they came in before on the foundation building. Is there any
We haven't
comments
seen
on
that hasn't
Yeah,
been
that
presented.
was
Right,
more of
okay.
just, we gave you the
Right.
broad brush of all the
Yeah,
buildings,
yeah.
whereas Tony spent a lot more time last time on retail.
Yeah, okay. No problem. No problem.
I'll take the brunt of that. I thought last meeting we were presenting the village as a whole,
Yeah.
not just the residential and leasing office and retail. And to piggyback on Nick for timing and what goes forward, we want to make sure we have all our ducks in a row for the residential to have all the materials. We have different color palettes, just to give you a hint of what's to come, that it's not just one.
Lots of decisions to be made by the client.
Yeah,
So we will get that in front of you as soon as we can.
are you expecting to have the residential buildings for next month's meeting, or do you think that might take a little longer?
In a perfect world, the idea is we essentially are hoping to make a submittal every month until we're done.
Okay.
We'll see how well we can do. It's a lot of work, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
All right, we are recommending approval with the above stipulations, as I stated earlier. Thank you, gentlemen, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you again for your time tonight.
Thank you.
I will carry some.
Jamie can do it.
All right, with that, we'll move on to other business. Any commissioners have any other business?
David Ellis's letter. I think David has some good points in there. But I think what is the critical thing is for the town to get back into the Emmett system. Critical, because David was the one who used it mostly, and
That I
that
can
is
actually
to
send you.
access the state's database for historic houses. And to compare that, so I got an earful from Ann Chapa on Old Home Day. Got an earful from other people too about other different things, so, but I think it is critical. And we need to have a designated person on our staff. It has been in the past within the planning function. be in contact with the state. This is with the Emmett system, who's responsible for it, and to also be in contact, because I talked with Mike 2 times, because we are a certified local government town. This opens up the possibility of a whole range of grants that the town could receive for historic structures. And Brandy Laughlin is the person who's been in contact, and what I talked with Mike specifically was a letter to indicate to the state, historical resources division that to get like a place in line for submitting a grant. So that letter was due, I think, like August 15th, 16th. Mike told me he's going to get it out. So whether it went out or not, I have no idea. So you can check up with Mike. And
I can certainly check up on that for you.
He'll probably have you do it all.
I will certainly look into that for
But
you.
it is critical that we get in the Emmett system. I think there's a fee that has been well worth it. We have been in it, and I'm surprised. I seem to be the contact person with the state, historic resources division. So.
Certainly, you can look into that, Mr. Vice Chair. To let you know, Emmett is currently phasing out paid access, and going to, by 2025, will be strictly a open access database. So it will not require membership or anything along those lines anymore. We are currently looking into it. As you know, we do have limited resources right now, so we're just trying to figure out what the best procedure is for this and how we've used it in the past. But it's certainly something that is on the town manager's radar, and we will give you an update on it next month.
Good news. So at least it's there. So we just don't want to let things slip by and lose out on something that we could, because the CLG could even provide us grant money for the old town hall, the old Morrison House. So there's a lot of possibilities there. So we got to keep that well and alive. And that's all I had.
Mr. Chairman, then, if Mr. Rugg's done, on the same vein, I wrote you, and I think there was an indication that maybe we could get on the agenda of the next meeting a fuller discussion of, I suggested 3 topics from David Ellis's letter. And I would suggest, if we are able to get that on the agenda, I realize the assistant town manager is out on leave right now, but perhaps her second could attend to represent the planning department in terms of maybe discussing process a little bit, because that was addressed in David's letter. And I would suggest also, since he was the initiator of that, that perhaps we could invite David to also come. And basically, just an open conversation. I think there are some things that he may or may not have had correct in his writing, and we can address those, I think, just by being transparent, putting out there, here's the process, here's what happens, let's put it out there once. I frankly have been on this commission, I think 3 or 4 years now, and I don't know where everything roots, and it wouldn't be a bad thing to hear it. And we certainly, between planning and yourself and certainly Mr. Rugg, we should be able to explain adequately what happens when we do these reviews. So I'd suggest that's a worthy discussion.
Absolutely. That was actually the primary motivation for me wanting to move that to our next regularly scheduled meeting. One, I think David Ellis would probably like to be present while we discuss this, as he had initiated the discussion, as well as, the opportunity to do it in an open forum during a regularly scheduled meeting. So, Mr. Butler.
Yeah, I know that the timbers came up from the Lions Hall, the Morrison House, and there were comments made by the chairman of that committee concerning the status of those. I can tell you that Ann Champer's information was very accurate. So I don't want to be accused of taking something, of doing something wrong, and Ann had it down to a T. So I just want to make sure that we get that on record. And those timbers went to the DPW first, and it was the DPW that wanted us to get them out of there. And that's when Kevin got involved in it, so.
Okay.
Little clarification.
Mr. Butler, I happen, for some unknown reason, to have watched the last planning board meeting.
Oh,
And-
okay.
And Ms. Champa did a more than adequate job of defending the ground
Oh,
at that meeting.
oh, really?
Oh.
I unfortunately didn't see that.
It'll take care of things, I know.
Oh, yeah,
Probably to dovetail on with John, the planning board is reviewing its subdivision and site plan regulations.
Mhm.
And probably looking at how much input the Heritage Commission has, like on the design review committee and everything. So Mike Malaguti has taken that under advisement. There's been some various ideas. But I think design review pretty much resides with the planner. We're gonna have a planner, but at least with the Planning and Economic Development Department. So that's a work in progress. I think the board wants to review more, but there was some good discussion on it with the board, so you can just review the meeting also. But, you know, my own feeling as a member of the planning board, there is some good input from the Heritage in regards to design review, because I know before the site plan subdivision regulations were changed to what they are now, the board really wasn't that involved with the design review, you know, the architecture, the landscaping, you know, like lighting design. It really involves these items right here,
Mhm.
the specifics of it. So just to let everyone know what's happening. So we'll probably, our September 11th meeting will probably be taking that up again.
Well, you know, I mean, I've heard some people, I'll just keep the names out of it, that says, you know, why do we need a Heritage Commission? And quite frankly, I think what we do here, the planning board hasn't seen this yet. So at least what it does is it puts people in front of another board that gives them a heads up on what they can anticipate. Now, I'm making an assumption that based on what I saw tonight, I think it'll move relatively smoothly. But I mean, it does. I mean, these developers, for the first time, they come in front of us and they have good information. And either it's way out, and that's what we tell the planning board, or it conforms to what I think people want. So I think there's value to this.
I think, Jim,
Committee.
what it comes down to is the planning board does not have the time to look at things like it's done here.
I get it.
And this is where the real input. I know that the planning board has always taken the recommendations from, you know, the Heritage Commission, except I know in one instance, and that was
Yep.
the lighting on Mr. Steer. That was gonna be external lighting,
Yes.
and the planning board shot that down, whereas the Heritage Commission
Yeah.
said it was, well, it was kind of like, okay, but,
Understood.
so, I mean, it isn't designed to be, we're compatible, but at least, you know, we search things out.
Yeah.
And then we can, you know, at least point things out where, in areas where we disagree. The final decision is really with the planning board, but for the most part, I think there's some good compatibility and
Yes.
dovetail
I do
together.
too.
Sure. We do end up talking about a lot of things that are technically under the purview, I think, of the planning board, such as signage and lighting and things like that. We focus a little more on design than, you know, whether or not enough space is lit or how big the signage is. But like you said, Jim, you know, as we give them input, it helps them to refine their design a little bit more so that when they
Yes.
go before the planning board, you know, they have a better shot of getting approval.
Yes, design of light fixtures. Planning board doesn't really get into that. It's just, you know, the light, so there's no overflow
Right.
onto, you know,
Yeah.
abutting properties.
Yeah.
I mean, it does kind of like overlap a bit, and sometimes there's, even though it's more of a planning function, but ideas that come out of here also, so.
But I think
The
if
Heritage
these
sees
gentlemen
it-
tonight had heard something very negative, they would probably start to make some changes before they hit the planning board. And I think that's
I
good.
think with very few exceptions, most of the time, the advice that we give
They take,
yeah, they take
Yeah.
it. And they may not make exactly the changes we were hoping for, but it's all about compromise, right? We want a certain thing, especially in a case like this Village on Technology Hill. They have a certain vision. We have a totally different vision of our town and what we're looking for, so we gotta meet in the middle somewhere. We
I
can't.
mean, here's a perfect example of the metal panels on the daycare center.
Yep.
I'm not a big metal panel guy.
Yep.
But I understand it. I wasn't gonna,
The,
it looks good.
I
it
was gonna
blends
say,
in.
I think the color choice too
Yep.
kinda helped with that a little bit. They didn't
Yep.
make it a brazen aluminum color or something. They
Yep.
made it a blue that actually matches with some of the other design elements, so they look good.
I think most of the developers kind of know what we expect, you know, so
Important.
you'll miss that, I'm sure you did. But I mean, I think now they kind of, you know, understand what we want. And then we got, the lookbook. How is that in progress?
Ask me that again later.
In other words,
Yeah,
it's slow.
yeah.
I get it.
There's a lot of work there, so.
There is, so, you know,
And to give you a little bit, Mr. Vice Chair, if you want a little bit more detailed answer, we are, as you know, we did an email switch over for you guys, and then we did one for the town hall, and we are looking at a little bit of a kind of comprehensive visual identity shift, not a major rebranding or anything, but trying to get all of our business cards and our letterhead looking the same now. And so that's kind of part of, we're trying to finalize that. You know, if you notice the letterhead, your chair noticed the change in the letterhead on the comment sheet. So we're trying to just get everything a little bit in line, and that's part of it as well. So because the lookbook is a significant undertaking, we want to make sure we know what we want that branding to look like before we commit to it for it.
understand.
No, you take a look at that Chase Bank. Remember the first renderings that came in on that?
Mhm.
They listened to what we had to say, and I think that the building materials and the way they've designed it, I think it looks good.
That's the one on the corner of Gilchrist.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it looks outstanding.
I do too.
Yeah.
And that's a mix, you know, they have the, kind of the modern looking corner glass, but they have the brick, they have the clad board. I mean, I think all in all,
Good-
I think
a good
that came out nice.
architect.
Yeah.
That together. I know, I think when I was first on the commission, we had Hannaford. The design they had looked like an airplane hangar. 3 iterations later, that's what we have. And then before the Heritage Commission was, you know, having input on, you know, design and everything,
Mhm.
the planning board had Home Depot. That went through 4 iterations.
Mhm.
And they were very agreeable, and they were good to work with. That was when John Farrell was first on the planning board.
They wanted like an orange roof or something at first, didn't they?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So the only thing that is Home Depot color is the sign out front. Everything
And
else was.
It's actually a good looking building.
Yeah,
Came out okay.
I mean, and John did a lot of traveling with his work, and he had
Yes,
pictures
I
of
did.
Home Depot from quite a few locations, and that's what the
Yeah.
engineers, and they had the architect here. They would take a look. They went back to Georgia, came back. You know, that was a good, I think, a year before that was finally together. But I know there was 4 iterations that came out of it. That was done with the planning board, and that's when kind of we changed both our subdivision and site plan regulations to get the input from the Heritage Commission, because the planning board basically didn't have the time to spend
Understood.
on it. With more structural things and traffic. And there's traffic. But the other was, McDonald's that was planned up at Exit 5.
Oh, that
And
was a
then
battle.
Mr. McDonald from corporate McDonald's came in with his corporate building. He wouldn't understand anything, so
He
we
didn't
gave
want.
him our input. So the next meeting, there's a lady who's not on here anymore, had pictures of McDonald's from different places.
Janet, is it Janet?
Yes, yeah. And they were taken off McDonald's own webpage.
Yeah.
And so, second meeting with Mr. McDonald, I forgot his name, but that's why we always call him Mr. McDonald, came in and we showed him all these pictures, and he didn't really have much to say, and he would be, coming back. We never saw him again, so.
Yeah, that didn't go.
But one of the buildings the commission also been criticized as the current McDonald's, which was the architecture of the original McDonald's building there was like the clock tower.
Mm-hmm.
That was a Dennis Sargent, project. And so they had to change it to more of a corporate design, because that McDonald's is independently owned. So the owner of it had input into it also and agreed to the modifications, but the commission was still criticized on it because it didn't really fit in. In my own opinion, it doesn't quite be there. It has to be,
Yeah, I don't disagree.
the more of a New England style.
If they want to be here, they'll sooner or later conform
Yeah,
to somewhat.
yeah. Usually those corporate designs change
All
every
the
once in a while. So it's,
Yeah, we got the Nuria that's going in at exit 5
Yeah,
to change a little bit. You know, they
Yeah, you're right.
they still have a couple bright green accents, but they had some
But they do-
lots of green. There was lots of that lime
Yeah.
green before.
Well, you know something, it's funny you say that, because the same outfit put one down by exit 1,
Mm-hmm.
and the design is very similar to what we finally came to terms with.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty
Interesting.
well.
and even the design of the CVS, which was the first drugstore on the
Yeah.
in the intersection, when they did Dairies is very similar to what they
Yeah.
did here.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, at least 2 iterations with them. It was just really working with them. It's not confrontational.
Well, and once they have a design that they know is acceptable to the community around, it's a lot easier for them to
Yeah.
modify the next one if they say, you know, we want a little more colonial, a little more New England.
Yeah.
Okay, we have something like that. Here you go. Simple.
Agreed.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Chairman lied. I
Mr.
have
Secretary.
two things. One is, and Kirsty may be able to help out with this. I know they've stood up the demolition delay committee, and they're taking a look at a building down on 102 near the gas station that's down there, where Caldwell Banker used to be. It's
Or Nashua Road.
thank you, David. Okay, and I believe there is a meeting
Is that
tomorrow
right on the
night,
Derry
or,
line?
There's a meeting at 6 o'clock tonight.
oh, there was, do you know?
I'm the chair.
Ah,
Acting chair, pardon me.
Excuse me, sir,
I
excuse
can't
me,
get
sir.
any closer than
Sue
that.
Jodry was chair, but she wasn't there, and Ann is a member, Ann
Okay.
Champa. So the owner got a report from the state saying that there was nothing of really historic significance in it now. The building was built in 1920 and was added on to as barns, so it was an agricultural building. But since then, it's been divided up into 5 different areas. So there's apartments or offices, anyway. It's all been divided up and gutted. And the state came along in their report and said it had no significance now. So there is no demolition delay on it, except with a condition that we will be able to go in within the next 10 business days to take photographs of whatever there may be left. Other than that, whether the owner is free to go ahead and do as they please.
Would
Question-
would a
question on
building
that.
would a building built in 1920
Mm,
qualify as a historic?
1920.
The state
So-
uses,
Just over 100 now.
the state uses 50 years. We use 100 years.
Yeah, we use 100.
75. Sorry.
Yeah,
The
please.
standards for initiating the demolition delay committee are laid out in our zoning ordinance 9.3. It states that the building must have more than 500 square feet. It must be more than 75 years old. It used to be 50. It was changed to 75 about 10 years ago. And it must be visible from a public roadway or from public right-of-way or public lands. If those 3 conditions are met as determined by the building inspector, then, and someone files for a building permit involving demolition, a demolition permit, a site review involving demolition, or sends a written letter to the building inspector requesting demolition, then that triggers the application to be forwarded to the demolition review committee to determine any potential historical or architectural significance. And then there's a series of steps they follow along the way to determine it that can result in a delay of no more than 45 days to the developer.
So to simplify things, I'm just curious, and I know it would take some type of legislative whatever. I don't understand why we have a demolition. I think that should really come into the Heritage Commission. That's my opinion, you know, it's like, that's what we're doing, we're looking at it, why do we have a separate, you know?
I think the function.
I don't
is-
know.
I think it could be because of the state only allows delay. That's why it's put. It's
Yeah,
just a certain,
yeah.
you get the 45 days of delay.
Mm-hmm,
And then it's up to the owner to do what they want.
mm-hmm.
And our ordinance is modeled after the
Yes.
city of Concord's. Because Concord had the first demolition delay ordinance in the state.
So that's where it came from.
Yeah,
Concord.
and that was work of actually Tim Thompson, who was a former
Mm.
planner here.
May not be a
Good number
bad
of years
idea
ago.
to have a committee specifically for addressing the delay, right? If it's only 45 days, I mean, we only meet every 60.
Yeah.
And the meeting must take place within 5 days of the application being forwarded to them. And the committee is made up of 2 heritage statutory, according to the ordinance,
Yeah.
it is made up of 2 Heritage Commission members and 1 member of the general public with up to 2 alternates. Currently, the composition of the committee just has 2 Heritage Commission members and 1 member of the public and 2 vacancies for alternates. There's no stipulation from where those alternates need to come, either the public or the Heritage Commission. So those 2 seats are still vacant.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I gotta go back and look at the state statute for it, because I haven't looked at that in a while, and it gets, as the years go by, it gets foggy.
The RSA, so I don't want to overspeak, but most of what governs the demolition delay is done on a town ordinance basis, so,
yeah.
rather than a statutory basis.
I'm not questioning the process that much, because it sounds like the building was rendered pretty bad anyways in terms of what's happened to it. But you know, for other buildings, it might have implications. Who does the review? It sounds like the builder got a letter from the state saying this is not historical, and that's, do we do a check on that, or run it up against any of?
That's where the Emmett system is helpful for us. 'cause
So-
if we could access it, we would know. Otherwise, we have to go to the state.
So there is a procedure laid out in our zoning ordinance in 9.3.3, which states that when those conditions that I mentioned earlier were met, one of those 3 conditions were met, and one of those 4 triggers happens, the building department has 5 days to forward it on to the demolition review committee. The demolition review committee then has 5 business days to, upon receipt, to determine if the building might be of historical or architectural significance. And that's just if it might, if there's a chance. If there is a chance, then the next step is a public hearing, which is what took place tonight. That has to happen within 12 days, according to our current ordinance. So that was the step that happened earlier this evening. There was a public hearing. The applicant is invited to the public hearing, and any members of the public. It went through our normal posting process as required by 91A. It was posted outside and was posted on the website, and it was also noticed due to some very, very specific conditions in the ordinance saying it needs to be noticed within 2 days of their decision. It was noticed in the Union Leader. There was no time to get it in the Londonderry Times. It would have published before today to give notice. So that is the decision. And then tonight at the public hearing, based on the testimony of the public and the testimony of the applicant and the research of the committee, they can decide if the building is significant or is not significant, historically and architecturally. And based on that, there's another tier. So if they decide it's not significant, the process ends. If they decide it is significant, it begins a process of negotiation with the applicant within 10 business days about what can be done to potentially document, preserve elements of it. But ultimately, it is up to a 45-day delay based on the time limits, based on the time delineations that are in these steps. It's a complicated process.
No,
But yeah,
and
I've
that's-
talked about it a lot lately, so.
Yeah, no, you got it
Sounds
down.
like it.
Please don't repeat it.
Yeah.
But No, again, I'm thinking, and I'm assuming then it went to the committee decided based on what they saw that it was, and that, I don't have an issue with that. But for other buildings we've seen recently, okay, this could be an issue. So, maybe we
Yeah, it could
should
be.
have at least a discussion with the members of the delay committee in terms of what happens in these meetings. Because as part of that next process, if they said, well, maybe based on what we're seeing, there is historical, would that kick up to us at that point?
No, it would not.
Okay.
The next step, if there is historical significance, they meet with the applicant or applicant's agent within 10 business days of the public hearing to discuss alternatives. And if no alternatives to demolition have been identified and agreed to by the applicant after that meeting, the applicant is free to proceed with demolition. And the Demolition Review Committee shall photograph the building provided the applicant is amenable to it. And the committee may also encourage the applicant to salvage significant architectural features.
I'm sorry, Chris, did you they meet with the?
Applicant,
The committee?
the committee meets with the applicant.
And if the applicant doesn't like the suggestions or is not willing to, then the applicant basically says, no, I don't think so, and they go and they knock the building down.
They do still have the right to proceed with the demolition after the delay to document and see if there's salvageable elements, yes.
That's a nice way of saying what I just said. Would they at that point can go in and knock the building down. Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think there's
Holy crap.
I think there's, the intent is a separation between the Demolition Delay Committee and the Heritage Commission, even though there are two Heritage Commissions on it for, so that we know what is basically going on. But for the most part, there's really been kind of agreement between the demolition delay and the applicant. So I don't think there's been any confrontational type of things. I think there's been agreement that some of the buildings are just not worth saving. And,
No,
I know Ann's been involved with at least recent history
I think
anyway,
the
the last 10
recent one
years.
was on Chase and Mammoth.
Yes.
Was in 2019, yes.
Am I
And then
wrong? Yeah.
before that, it was 2014 with
Yeah.
48 Perkins Road. Those were the last two times before this past 2 weeks.
I'm not sure, did Ann or whoever was representing us at the time, were they able to go in and take pictures of that house?
Yes.
I just,
And there was some material salvaged from that house as
it
well.
was.
I'm not speaking as a town employee when I say that. I'm speaking as a person who was present at Historical Society at the time. So, yeah,
yeah,
we did.
It's usually
They
the
did get some.
Historical Society will collect, because I think it was a mantle or something that was representative or something that
Yeah.
and the owner agreed, you go in
Yeah,
and
yeah.
take what you want and everything, so there's no,
I've never heard an owner not agree to doing that.
Yeah, if they're dismantling
I
it.
think they, yeah.
What typically becomes of materials like that are salvaged?
They're put in storage, I guess.
yeah, Historical Society.
Society, yeah, I would assume. you go
That
on-
salvage is, that's a
I don't know.
question that is not laid out in the zoning ordinance. And as I am not an attorney or a legal specialist, I am going to refrain from commenting on things that are not specifically laid out in front of me, but I can certainly look into what that process would be, where it would go, how that would be decided.
More curiosity than
Yeah.
anything.
It's really up to the Historical Society. They're the ones that have the interest. The Historical Society's been the keeper of the town history since a long
Its
time.
inception.
So, I
As
mean,
I've known,
they are the
yeah.
stewards of
Yeah.
the community for, the history of the town. And,
Well, I think those beams are in the carriage house that
Yeah.
Benson, was it
That is
Benson
correct.
that- Yeah, they're stored,
yeah,
did
'cause,
Benson
I
build
mean,
a
they've
carriage house?
got the barn down there. And,
Benson?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they put it
I
up.
think that's where they are, I don't know, that's what
I
I
know,
was told.
when I was first involved, when I was first here in town, it was, Melvin Watts had most of the stuff in his house. Then his house burned.
Oh, God.
No, I asked Ann tonight, and she said that they were in the carriage shed.
Carriage house, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Just briefly, I promise briefly. We had a master plan steering committee meeting tonight, and I'm on that as a representative of Heritage. Just to give you a quick update, there's a survey that we put out for the first time at Old Home Days. people come and they can scan a QR code and answer. We did get a couple of, I'm going to say 3 out of the 22 questions or so that are related to historic preservation of some of our buildings here in town, to get some input from the public in terms of what they're looking forward for the next 5 to 10 years, what's important to them. There'll be a lot more survey material put out. I think there'll be a website pushed out. I'm not going to commit, Kirsten, sometime in the future.
Oh, that one has nothing to do with me.
Oh, good, good. Then it's going to be Monday. But there'll be further communication on this. They have a postcard program that they've put together to get as much input from the general public on what they're looking for Londonderry to be over the next 5 to 10 years. And I would encourage you, once this will be in the Londonderry Times and some other papers, once you see these codes, perhaps take the time to scan them ourselves and maybe have those near and dear to you scan them and complete the survey so that we can get Heritage Commission input on it beyond the few words I get out in these meetings. Okay? And that's it from me, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, John.
I believe
I gotta get my QR code.
you did send out a couple, like a sample with some questions or something, I think.
Yes.
I responded to that. Did you get ample response to that to get a good idea of what you thought you should put in there?
Well, your response was more than ample, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, we did, and then there was a feeling, and I think it was probably a good feeling, that the initial survey was too long and people would object to it. So the survey that was put out, I think, had 22 questions in it. They've also narrowed the focus by taking the sort of the 9 target areas that the master plan was going to work on and have narrowed it down to 3 out of the box that they're hoping to have input on that over the next 3 to 6 months, and then they'll bite off the next 3 and the next 3, so they get all 9 done. Past master plans have taken 12 to 18 months, I guess, from what they're telling me,
Yeah,
to
traditionally,
formulate. Yeah.
yeah, I'd say, a year and a half to 2 years is normal, because the bulk of the effort is really data collecting, and then getting the data together.
And so that's, they're dividing it into those kinds of segments, and so we'll see how this whole thing rolls out as we go down. But there's certainly been some input from, I think, both the town council and town manager that they wanted something in a term shorter than 18 months. Okay, so I think there's a hope that we can deliver at least these first 3 segments in a significantly shorter period of time.
Did they offer why they wanted it in a shorter period of time?
Because there was a lot of pressing issues, I think, in front of the town, and they don't want town monies and town focus to be 5 to 10 years down the road, as opposed to addressing some of the current issues. And we could sit here and rattle those off, but not a mistaken thing. I think the path that we're on now, in essence, says, yes, address the current issues, and by breaking this into smaller segments, we can do 2 things at one time.
It's a big effort anyway, I mean. And, I passed along to the planning board, I think it was an article in the Union Leader Sunday edition on the aging population in the state. And it goes back to one of the demographers. So probably at some point, the steering committee should listen to, in fact, I'm thinking of requesting of the planning board to have demographic come in and talk, because we've had like, Peter Francis, who I don't know if he's probably retired now. There's Dennis DeLay, who is retired. He was the economist for Eversource. Let us know where the population is going. The information that I gave the planning board has a lot of detail, and points to the aging population up to about 2050, where before I won't be here, of the aging population, so they'll be, at least, not so old, and that the whole dimension of housing is gonna be changing, once we get probably beyond a 10-year period.
It's very interesting, because there was a lot of conversation initially in the steering committee about aging population and services required, et cetera, et cetera. But there was a young lady that came in and spoke very eloquently about the needs of younger people, and why are younger people fleeing Londonderry. I think those were her words, and because of the general unaffordability of housing and the fact that a lot of builders are not building first-time buyer homes. That's not something we're really seeing here in this town, and what could the town do within its limited scope to address that or to take that into account, and is it to our advantage? Are we, like the rest of the state of New Hampshire, perhaps becoming a little too heavy on my age group and not putting enough emphasis on younger people? And so there were a couple of questions that got tweaked on the survey to kind of
That's a good
plug that in a little bit, so. And frankly, it was a good point put on the table by a member of the public, and I don't know that it had been considered prior.
I mean, really, when you think about it, look how many 55 and older communities that we have in town. Well, do we have any
We're like-
25 to 30 communities in
We're-
town?
we're-
I
we're-
mean, really.
We're like every other community in New Hampshire also, and New Hampshire's like the other New England states and some of the other states in the whole Northeast. It's a problem, and it's kind of the demographic of the baby boom age.
Mhm.
And it's probably the largest population that's just kind of going through the whole phases of life. But the whole basis of this hasn't even been discussed. The tax structure in the state of New Hampshire favors older retired people, and that's what they're getting.
And we've done some things in our town in the past to encourage the development of those 55-plus communities.
Yes.
And I think part of the thinking back then, as I've heard it, it was to maybe not have our school population grow so fast, and so we've kind of taken it maybe a little too far. I think I've heard that we have 15 of those now. We're up to 15,
We're very
55
well
plus.
covered.
and-
We've seen quite a few of them come through here just in the last few years.
Yeah, it's probably about 5 years ago now, I think we took that 55 and older housing off our ordinances, so it's no longer there. And what we're looking for is more of a mixed community, mixed ages, kind of a mixture. And I know when Colleen was here, we're looking at probably like garden-style multifamily for both old and younger people in a price range that
It's
is
affordable.
affordable at that time.
It's just not here, and the builders aren't willing to do it.
Well, that's why something like, I know we didn't see the residential tonight, but something like this, where you'd expect to at least get a working age population in the Technology Hill kind of development, is kind of interesting.
Yeah. And I think that's what PUDs tend to promote anyway, is well, it seems to be a buzzword with some people, but the diversity. So you get young and old together, you get different types of people, living together, and they're all supportive of each other. But one thing, I think when we had Peter Francis, and he and Lorraine Merrill, who was the former agricultural commissioner, wrote in a book on basically the aging population in New Hampshire. And it was in 2007, New Hampshire was the second youngest state in the country. And in 2018, it was the sixth oldest state in the country. And that's how things have
It's
changed.
interesting how it changed so fast in
Yeah.
such a short time frame.
And that's where, once I saw that, I said, well, the over 55 aging isn't helping us. The big reason was because the 55 and older was, they got a bonus for density. And the purpose of that density was to lower the cost. Has it lowered the cost? No. You look at Cross Farms. When they first went on the market, around 400,000. Now they're going like 700,000, so
Yeah.
it takes, a
There's
wealthy
no incentive
individual
to
to
build
afford.
first-time home. There really isn't.
I think prices in general are kind of prohibitive at the moment,
Yeah,
either way.
everything, yeah.
so.
Move we
Anything
adjourn?
else, I'll make a
Any
motion to
further-
adjourn.
A cheerful
I was
note.
waiting for it, David.
Yeah.
So moved. Would anybody like to second?
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.
We could go on all night.
The ayes have it. Meeting adjourned.